Yes, let's get started.
Okay. Okay, so let's discuss the template. So we're here to discuss the annual planning process for 2025, the last annual plan for She Leads. And we shared the template and the slide deck with all the annexes with all of you last week, I suppose. It's not much different from what we have been doing in the past years, just a couple of additional questions or sections in that narrative template, which speaks more about the end term evaluation as well as the, so to say, closure or the exit strategy for the program. So I would say let's go over the narrative template first together and the different sections of it. And then the slide deck that we have provided, I would just like to say it's a suggestion. You can always decide to have your own ways of facilitating those sessions. So I wouldn't necessarily say that let's go over the slide deck as well, but we can run through it just to take you over what we had in mind when we thought how these sessions could be done. And of course, we can have questions on the go as well as in the end. I'm going to share my screen and we can go over the annual narrative template. Do you see the screen? I suppose so. This is the screen.
Do you see the screen? So
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So before we start going over the sections, I want to tell you that so next year is the final year of She Leads, as you all know. That means that the implementation year will be different than the previous ones. So we are implementing only until the 31st of September. So all the activities have to stop at the end of September. This also means that your budgets all need to finish by 31st of the budgets for activities, that is, all need to be finished by the 31st of September. Because any money that is left over will have to be given back to the ministry. Okay? Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, and then I guess if the activities go on until 31st of September, then your targets also kind of should speak to that time period. I saw a hand from Hava earlier and now from Wafa.
Not from Hava, I think from Sarah. A lot of hands. Hey, Lisbeth!
Okay.
Hi, Wafa.
Let me see. I can't see the hands anymore.
Hi,
Okay,
Lislot, how
Wafa,
are
go
you?
ahead.
Hello, I'm doing
Hi,
well,
Therese. How are you? Over to you,
Wafa,
Lynn.
go ahead with your question.
It's Lieselot.
Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. I think Sarah was before me, but maybe we have the same question. You mentioned, Linda, that the budget, the activities will stop then by the 30th of September, and that also the budget needs to be until the 30th of September. If not used, then we need to give it back. I was just wondering, like we did it with the GAA, if it's not the case that the cost can be until the whole year of 2025. So, for example, the salary costs of the employees of all the partners we're working with. That was just a question which came into my mind.
So yes, the salary costs indeed until the end of the year. So this is only for activities, right? So the indication for activities and implementation itself is like until the third quarter of the year, and so is then also the budget for activities and targets. And if for any reason that is not possible, then please inform us timely. But this is kind of the indication which we want to go by, because indeed all the money that is left at the end of the year has to go back to the MFA. Okay, Sarah?
Hi, how are you? So just to be clear, yes, we did have this in mind when we set for the activities, that the end of the activities will be at the end of September. However, for example, if we were to do a project closure at the end of September, so the bills and the payment will be made in October, would that be a problem? Like to have an extra 1 month for that payment to be released, like up until October, late November, early November maximum?
No, that is okay. That is okay, because that is like a closure, but not like per se activities towards the She Leads targets.
No, yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Sophie?
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda and Himani. So for me, for the partners in Uganda specifically, budgets end up to the second quarter, most of them. So does it mean that we need to, as we are doing our annual planning, we need to budget until September, or yeah, because our budgets end up to quarter two?
I see Lucia shaking her hand. Lucia, is this about the question Sophie asked?
Yeah, I would say that no. The reasoning behind the limit of quarter three is what Linda just mentioned, that it's really not possible to have remaining activities in quarter four. And the reason is because we certainly don't want to have to return money that was given to us. So that is why there's a strict there's a limit in quarter three for activities. If it's not possible to spread those activities over the 3 quarters, it's fine to finalize in quarter two. Meaning that quarter three is the maximum limit.
Thank you, Sophia. And thank you, Lucia, for answering.
Any more questions on that? If not, let's go to the template. As you can see, the initial part about the general information is the same as previous years, where we give the basic information of the network and the partners and the attendees of your meeting. This has been the format for the past all meetings, I guess, so that's not much new. Then in the second section, we have reflections, where we have celebrations and small victories, voices and reflections of the girls and young women. We do expect these sections to be brief, but the discussions would be much richer, I guess. So you can also supplement it with additional photos, videos, and clips or links to other things. But if you see the word limit is not much for those sections, please be creative and share as much information as you can in these sections as well. This helps us make the consolidated report richer. Then we also have the contextual changes and risks analysis. This is also what we do on a yearly basis. There are 3 bullets in each. I'm not going to go over each and every one of them, but in the context, again, we are only looking at the most significant changes since the last time you did your context analysis. That was not very long ago. And look at the most significant changes and how it's affecting the programming in the coming year. So that kind of analysis of linking those changes to your programming is also something that's important. We do have a lot of contextual updates, but also kind of having a bit of a moment to reflect would be nice in these sessions. And the risk matrix, the idea is that you can only update the previous risk matrix that you had, and you don't need to go over and make a new one. You can use the same one and just update it for the coming period. So that's the second section of reflections.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Maybe about the risk matrix, because I also understood for some networks that having to do it at the session itself is a lot of work. So maybe you can already ask network partners to look at the risk matrix before and already provide their input, so that you only have to discuss and consolidate the issues where either something has materialized or you have new things. Yes, Vafa?
Okay, yeah, thanks.
You have your hand
Sorry. We're together, so we're both buffer today. Yeah, two questions from our side about the changes in the context, and then the third bullet point. Please share with the desk signs a maximum of 10. I'm just wondering, how strict are we? And that's the first question. And the second question is, you have collected from October 2023. What is the reasoning behind to also have October 2023?
Because that
Over
was,
to you,
in my
lady.
understanding, yes, because that was, to my understanding, the last time that the signs were collected, right? That you collected signs, because that was for the annual report,
The MTR.
the MTR. So since then, I don't think we have seen an updated outcome harvest list. Hawa? Hawa! Sorry, I'm happy. Hawa, I see you with your
Good
hand up.
morning. Hi, everyone.
Good
Yes.
morning.
So, yeah, I have the same question that Lislot is asking, because I was also going to mention about how are we going to make sure we categorize the reporting so we don't duplicate them. Because now we have reported in February, and the signs that we collected were reported on since December. And I'm sure some people even added January, because we were still collecting sign and we had yet to write our reports by then. So now, if we are collecting signs again to be able to include it in the annual plan report since October, will that not be duplication? And also, another question is, how do we make sure when we are writing the annual report next year, so information that has been collected now and documented in the annual plan, do we say strictly we are not going to include them in the annual report, or the annual report should cover everything? So sometimes dealing with those two documents, I find myself confused, because it is either you duplicate the information, some information you would have put in one report, and now you're putting it here again. And that is also daunting on you guys that are reviewing the report at the global desk. So I think we have to discuss it properly and then agree, so it becomes easier for all of us.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you
over
for
to
that.
you.
So
Sarah also has a hand.
okay, Sarah, does it relate to this issue as well? Then please go ahead.
Yes, I do completely agree with Hawa, and I also have to say that having a collection of signs of change and validation, that will really add to the amount of work on the annual planning and the reporting. And considering the time period between the last time we reported on the signs of change, which was February 2024, up until now, not necessarily we will have many signs. And considering also for the semi-annual reports per organization, we are also asking partners to describe their signs of change. So the many times that we ask partners, including Plan or myself or whatever, to do the signs of change really makes an additional burden that I don't see necessary in this annual planning, to be completely honest.
Do you want to take that part? Go ahead.
I mean, also responding partially to the question of Hava and Sarah's point, there are two things here. We use outcome harvesting as a monitoring tool, so we will be collecting signs possibly every month, ideally, and definitely at the time of planning and reporting. The point that most of you have collected and reported signs in February is valid, but not everybody. So this is for the entire consortium. Those networks who have not done it at that time need to. And those of you who have, please add signs if there are any after you reported them the last time. At least I have not seen all the outcome harvesting logbooks after, the last annual planning, where we did some kind of outcome harvesting. So please take this moment to also just update whatever is there to update. If there's nothing to update, it's fine. But this is our main monitoring tool that all of us use globally. So please don't not use it. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here. This is also important from the point of view of the upcoming end-line evaluation or the end-term evaluation that we are doing. So this is the moment to also go back in 23. If there were any signs that you missed, that you did not report on, please add them. This is a time to reflect, so to say, on your outcome harvesting logbook as a whole, I would say. And if there are no new signs to report, that's fine. But all we want you to do is to go back to that logbook as a network and reflect together. That's the first point. And the second point is, yes, it is very confusing because this annual reporting for the previous year and the annual planning for the next year kind of is in a very small time period. And especially with this context and sign related business, it gets a bit confusing. We will not necessarily use the signs that you're reporting for the annual plan. So we can still write about them, or you can still write about them in the next year's annual report, responding to your question specifically. But this is important from a reflections point of view, as well as from preparing from the end line point of view. So please do give this some time and some thought in your meetings as a network, as an entire network. What do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I really want to, I completely agree with what you said. Obviously, I have to because we're the desk. But what I wanted to add to that, it is really about formulating the signs of change. So your new signs, like focus on formulating those and not on ranking them, right? Because it's like for us, what is important is not the rank, but it's really that we know what types of changes happened. So maybe this also may take away from the time that you invest in it at the annual planning meetings, because I understood that some networks will have long discussions about like, okay, is this a 2, is this a 4, is this a 3? That is actually not important for us. So it's actually best maybe to leave it up to the organization that has designed themselves to kind of evaluate where they think the significance is, and then it's up to the final term evaluation consultants to kind of really go into that discussion. What we want is to have as complete as possible list of signs of change. Yes, Sarah, I see you still have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. What you just said really comforts me to some sense. However, I just want to emphasize that the annual planning is kind of heavy. And my question is, will it be possible for the partners to fill in their logbook, and I myself as a coordinator can validate it in terms of formulation and send it to you, or should we actually do it in the workshop as what we do in the outcome harvesting? If the latter, it will really be problematic because it's really heavy, very a lot of segments there, and it's only 3 days based on the partner's availability.
Sophie, I see you have your hand up. Thank you, Sarah, for your question.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I just wanted to respond to Sarah a little bit. Yeah, for us, what we've done as a country, we've already started when tools were released. We immediately started on, I shared to the partners that we need the science logbook complete. So much as we had collected signs in February, just like Himani has highlighted, I encouraged partners to top up the other signs, ensure that our evidence is on point, because they are going to use our annual planning is the first week of August. So they're using this time, 1 month, to collect the signs that are missing, ensure that all the tools are complete, so that by the time we go into the annual planning, everything is set. We also, I don't know whether this works in other countries, but as Uganda, we have an M&E working team that is also supporting. So to follow up with the signs, to ensure that the tools are complete and all that. So we are planning to do so. When we saw the question on the end line, we are planning to a little bit work use this time to work on all the templates so that as we are entering into the annual planning, we don't have a lot of work on our shoulders. So it's not as heavy as it is. So that is what we are doing. Yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And also to respond to Sarah, it is okay that that partners fill in the signs before. On formulation, I think it's best to kind of keep that also at the organization's level, and if they need help. So for example, if you have the whole list and you have it together, and you shared with us, Himani and Jos are also here to support and help with, okay, the exact formulation of things, like is everything in there, and validation. And I think also the different focal persons from TDH, from DCI, from Plan, and from FemNet as well, like that is also a role they can take up so that you as the country network coordinator do not have to do it all by yourself. Thank you. And maybe before we continue, I want to go back to Hawa's question, and I think Himani already clarified it. So what is it saying that the two reports and the time span is very short so that things can be very similar. So please focus only on like the contextual changes that you think are most important and that you think, okay, you want the ministry to know about them because they're that important to mention again, or things that have happened since your last reporting, right? I hope that also helps. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah. Where's my mouse? Shall we go to the next section then? Just to highlight again, because I feel like outcome harvesting is very close to my heart, as all of you know. I would highly encourage you discussing that entire logbook, at least for an hour in your meeting. You don't have to go into the depth of it like you do for the annual reporting, because that's also kind of called the outcome harvesting workshop. But here it's more about, it can also feed into your section 1 of reflections, like that can help you highlight some of the things that you want to celebrate, or some of the girls and young women led initiatives that you want to highlight. So use it as a tool to kind of facilitate that session if it's possible. It's always good to have that logbook updated by each organization before your meeting instead of in the meeting. So that's definitely possible. But as far as possible, use existing sessions to kind of weave in and use the information from that logbook actually in your sessions or your discussions, because in the end, that the tool exists for us. We are not there to complete the tool. It should feed back into what we do. So that's just my M&E brain advocating for outcome harvesting. Moving on, the TOC. So there, as you see, there are 2 parts this time in the theory of change review. It's partially also in preparation for the end term or the final term evaluation that we will be conducting next year. We are preparing the ground, so to say, for that. We have tried to keep it as light and as straightforward as possible. The more complicated stuff will follow. But to start with, the first part is what we do every year. Again, it's more about reviewing your theory of change in its entirety, and it's just going over whether everything still makes sense, if it's valid, are there any assumptions or any outputs or outcomes that need to be adjusted given, whatever happened in the past year, or whatever contextual changes your network might have seen. If changes need to happen at what level, for example, at activity level or at output level or outcome level, like please explain it in detail if there are any changes. Again, this is a moment of reflection. Use it to reflect and to kind of really go over that theory of change and reflect on what has happened and how can for example, the contextual changes or your own activities have affected any of the logical, those arrows, or a formulation of one of your outputs in any way. Whatever we have done in the past 4 years would possibly also inform our assumptions or our formulations of outputs and outcomes. So please use that. This is the part we do, so to say, every year or even at the time of annual reporting. But before going to the other part, please let me know if there are any questions about this particular section of the theory of change review, the first 4 bullets. If not, then we go to the next part of the review of the theory of change, which links more directly to the upcoming final term evaluation. So yeah, the first bullet, as you see, is very clear. Just share a picture or the file with the latest version of your theory of change. So maybe your theory of change went over some changes in the previous years, and it looks different than your network's theory of change, like it was in 2021. So please share the latest version of it. Maybe in some cases it has not changed at all. In some cases, I know it has changed a little bit. So share the latest version with us. Whatever, if you change it in the meeting, then share that version with us. That's just attaching that file to your entire package when you send it to the desk. The second one is more about comparing it with the initial theory of change. Just highlight where have things changed. Like, have you disproved any assumptions? Have you changed any outcomes, and why? So it's basically looking back and looking at how many times we changed and what changed. In some cases, again, like there may not have been a lot of changes, but even minor changes matter. So it's more about highlighting the changes, in what area those changes existed. Was it at outcome level? Was it just the logic? Was it, the language? Was it the assumptions? What was it? And then the third one is more about reflecting on the outcomes achieved so far. Do they confirm the pathways or the logic or the assumptions that we started off with? Or do we need to adapt our ideas on how change happens? So this is like slightly broader question. So in the previous bullet, we went over the logic or, the basic points where things happened or where things changed. But now we are zooming out a little bit and looking at this whole TOC, and whatever we have achieved so far, we are just reflecting in terms of, does this prove or disprove, like our experience? Does it prove or disprove, so to say, your TOC? In what sense? And what are the most important shifts that have happened and why? Basically, that why talks back again to your experience or the results from your activities. And the last one is going to help us decide the scope of the N-line. So please don't ignore that one. That's about looking at your most and least effective actions and strategies in the past 4 years. Again, look at your TOC, look at the outcomes and outputs that you were working towards. And at the bottom, we have those strategies that we use. Of course, you all know them because you are more involved in the implementation as well. So you don't need to look at necessarily the ones that are stated on that document, but the ones that you've been using. And please elaborate on what has been the most and the least effective or efficient actions and strategies that your network has implemented. That helps us, like I said, decide the scope and the focus of the end-term evaluation. So please, please, please take enough time to discuss this and elaborate as much as you can on this part. So that is, so to say, the new part, or the part that speaks more to the end-term evaluation or helps us prepare for the end-term evaluation. Are there any questions on that?
If you have questions later, you can always find us by email. Yes, Lucia.
Maybe a quick one on my side. I don't see very much the difference between the bullet 3 of this part, reflect on the outcomes and how it confirms the theory of change, and the exercise above, when we reflect also on confirmation of the theory of change.
Yeah, I see what you mean. What we normally do in the first part that we do every year, it's also more with an eye towards the next year of implementation in terms of, does this need any changes, keeping in mind the activities, for example, of the next year. But the latter part is more reflective in the sense of what have we achieved and which outcomes or which outcome areas have been logically proven, so to say, by the TOC. They are very strongly related, so they might even feed into each other when you are reflecting. But I feel like the first exercise is reflective with an eye on the future, whereas the other one is purely reflective.
An eye on the past,
you.
or okay, yeah, I see. Thanks.
Yeah.
But also maybe with a stronger focus on what has worked more than, so which are the pathways or
Yeah.
like the how do you call it? Yeah, the pathways.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because with this one, what we really want to capture is, so from the beginning until now, what has really worked for us and what hasn't. And also where maybe most of your efforts have been, right? So if you say like, okay, most of our efforts have been here using these strategies, and that has helped a lot, then, for example, when we are doing the final term evaluation, we can also focus a little bit more on that, right? Knowing that it has worked for you. So it's kind of like looking back for the 4 years since you started, what has really worked and what hasn't, and where have your energies and efforts individually as organizations, but also as jointly as partners, where do they lie?
Yeah, I see. Thanks.
Okay.
More questions? Okay. If not, then we go to the next section. Do you want to go over this, Linda?
No, you can.
Okay. Okay. So this one is more about planning for the coming year. That's what the annual plan is for, right? So the 2025. We will use this template or the narrative to go describe it, so to say, narratively, but there's also the Annex A that I think all of you are familiar with. I will open it in a minute and show it to you again, which kind of has some sections where you can elaborate on some of the planned actions. There are a few changes in this. I guess the third bullet is a new one, for example, and that's also an important one again, given that 2025 is the last year of implementation. That reflecting on the 4 years of experience with which she leads, what do the girls and young women and CSO partners require in the final year of implementation to sustain their activities beyond 2025? So this is more from the sustainability angle. And here we would really like to gather also the needs, so to say. So what is needed for the girls and young women's groups or organizations and other partners that we work with beyond She Leads implementation, and how much of that can be done in 25. And it's more about stock taking as well as might help you with your actions for 2025. And then the fourth one is also what we did last year when we did annual planning, was about strategic collaboration among network members to effectively address these needs. So this is, there was a bit of a confusion with the term joint action, so that has been dropped now. And we are calling it strategic collaboration, where each network partner kind of they decide on collaborating with each other on a certain action that they're conducting. And this has nothing to do with the joint budget. I'm just clarifying again from the past experience. So this is more about the actions you plan, how will you collaborate in executing them? And how do they also speak to the third bullet? They don't have to in all cases, but there could be some that they speak to those needs and requirements that you have identified in the previous question that we are discussing. In addition to that, actions per organization, per pathway, and for the time period that Linda mentioned until the end of September next year. Keep that in mind, and that's about it, right?
Yes, that's about it. Lucia, is that an old hand or a new hand?
New hand.
Sorry, old.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Are there questions? No? Okay. I see new people joining. Hi. Sorry.
Okay, then the next section, the target setting for 2025. This focuses again mainly on the basket indicators. We have an annex for this as well. In the Google Drive, you will find a folder per network. Do you still see my screen? With the folders per network. And if you click, you will find a file like this. That's the template for target setting for your network. Of course, it's empty because you're setting the targets for this year. In case you find any numbers there, please delete them and use new numbers.
I've deleted all.
But basically,
Thanks, Sarah.
that's the format that we have been using this for reporting as well. We are going to use column E to set targets and column H for the tier 3.
Are you showing your screen?
Yes,
Okay.
I should be. You do see the template, right? Yeah, okay, thank you. And of course, it's per organization. So there are tabs per organization. In the beginning is an explanation note. In addition to that, if you need any additional help, I'm here. Happy to talk about basket indicators. I can talk about them in my sleep even. So also ask Linda since she loves them. But yeah, that's basically the target setting exercise. Also remember again the time period that was set that were said in the beginning for the actions that you will be carrying out. Please be realistic with the target setting in that case. Yeah, so that is about it. I see 2 hands, 1 hand, Sarah.
You know what I'm gonna ask. So the basket indicators, the story is long as time. I talked to you, Imani, several times. Our MNE focal point talked to you as well, and we still have vagueness in some areas and when it comes to collecting these targets. For example, and happy to do that in a separate meeting if you see fit. Do we count government entities in terms of building the capacities or not? I suppose not. However, in some cases we did. So this is why the confusion comes. And do we count plan? Like, for example, I present plan. Do I count plan as tier 1 or should I not count myself in tier 1? So these are a few things. And I think, Imani, you know Haneen very well now, so you've talked to her a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. Simple questions. I mean, the straightforward question about tiers, yes, plan is tier 1, count them as tier 1. Your implementing partners are tier 2. Again, those are clubbed, so you can just count them in the same bucket. What is differentiated is tier 3, and that's where there's no money flow. Like there is no formal contract to implement She Leads. There can be the groups that you work with or, other organizations. We have spoken about this. That's the simple one. The next one, I think that's a very Jordan specific question again, because in some cases you work also with like quasi-governmental organizations or not necessarily entirely governmental organizations. So that was a bit of a gray area because the basket indicator was also not that finely defined by the ministry. So I would say go with how you have reported before, but I'm happy to discuss this later in a separate meeting because I think that needs a bit more, I need a bit more information to go over like who is this organization, what have we done with them and all of that. In any case, we can discuss this later. I guess I'm also attending your meeting, so happy to discuss it then as well.
Yeah, we'll lend you her for a week and then you can talk everything basket indicators.
And then Sophie?
I do have another question, but maybe after Sophie.
Okay.
Sarah, you can proceed.
Yes, Sophie, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my question was on the targets. During midterm review, we set targets until 2025. So are we again going to set other targets? Or I'm confusing everything.
A little bit. So the targets that we set at the midterm review were for the outcome indicators. And
Oh, okay.
we set annual targets for the output indicators. So reach, capacity, and representation. Those are the annual targets that we set. And the ones that you set at the time of MTR, until 2025, those were the number of laws changed and the space created. So those are outcome indicators. We are not looking at them now. We are only looking at the output basket indicators.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, great.
Yes, it does.
Lydia,
Thank
you had your hand up earlier as well. Do you still have a question? Lydia, I saw your hand up earlier, but then it was dropped.
Yes, Linda, thank you. I think if Himani can upload the targets again, because the last time I checked the folders, they were empty.
They're there now since last week. I see. Yes,
Okay,
they are
so-
there now. I saw Sarah shaking her hand and I was like, what? No, they are there now.
There.
Yes.
Which one should I open?
Ghana. They are there. I did it myself. Vafa is my witness. I did it, yes.
They
Okay,
are there.
thank you.
And if, like, you can use last year's template as well. We have not changed that. We just need new numbers.
No, I have adjusted it and clarified the explanation to make it clear that it's about 2025.
But it's, yeah, I mean, the template, you know it. The basket indicators is a struggle, I know, but it's the last year, guys. I mean, that's probably a relief. I don't know. Sarah had a question.
Just to recap what Sophia asked, and just to emphasize, so we're going to fill only the EID, but we're not going to fill the lows and the CSOs section of WRG 2.1, 2.2, the one we filled last year in the annual planning. These are the number of laws.
5.2.1 is the WRG indicator that we will fill this year because that's about capacity strengthening. The other WRG indicators that we will not, because those are outcome level. So whatever this template contains is only output, and you have to set targets for all of them. Well, I sound very strict. You have to, but I mean, we need to.
We do.
Set targets for all of them. So not the outcome. Everything that is there in this template is output, and please set targets for them.
Okay. I had one thing about the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for tier 3, we are only reporting youth-led CSOs as well as girls and young women-led CSOs. And we've seen sometimes that partners also report women-led CSOs or other mixed adults, but for tier 3, we are not recording those. So for tier 3, it's only youth-led and girls and young women-led CSOs.
That is the focus. In some cases, it's
okay. This is what yours told me, but okay.
But this is the focus. Like
I knew how I would. Yes, how
youth-led and girls and young women-led is the focus. That's what we want in tier 3. In tier 1 and 2, everything, whatever is there.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 3, yes, youth-led and girls and young women-led. But in specific cases, I know I have spoken to those network coordinators whose hands are up. Guys, you can report them. I will look at them. Just make sure that the comments capture why they are tier 3. Okay? Hawa.
You already answered
The
my
hand has
question.
disappeared.
I'm sorry, this was information.
Who put the comments and you already react to it, Imani.
Yeah, we spoke about it last year, so I am aware of those specific, very, very specific cases. So let's put them there and just keep putting the comments because, yeah, my memory might fail me. So,
and yours may not know. So then he tells me I reported wrong.
No,
so please add the comments. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, I think I stopped sharing my screen, right?
I don't know because I don't see it.
Let me go. Yeah, you can see my screen now, I think. And then we are going to the next section that's about the cross-cutting indicators. And this again is what we do every year, but it's with a focus. What?
It would be nice to see them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's with a focus a bit on the end term evaluation as well. We have not changed the number of questions or the way we used to frame them. It's just more also about what has been the most and least effective actions and strategies. So that's been added. Other than that, we have those cross-cutting indicators of meaningful and safe, meaningful and inclusive participation, collaboration. What was it? Sustainability, and what else do we do? There's fourth one, which I'm forgetting.
The embassy,
That's collaboration, right?
collaboration with the embassy, other
And
partnerships as well.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and internal.
So those are the cross-cutting indicators. We do not request any quantitative information. If you have, please share. I'll be happy, but that's not a must. We suggest to use this Annex C that has been added this year, which is just to, systematize or kind of structure those thoughts in terms of what has been most useful or effective and least effective. It's a simple matrix that goes over what needs to be done or what we need to start doing to do this effectively. What can we continue? So that's the most effective actions, and what needs to stop. Those are the least effective actions. And we have added all the four cross-cutting indicators there. So that's an annex that we think would be useful to use to answer these questions, and you can also share it with us for us to just capture other thoughts that probably are not there in the narrative. But it's mostly focused on the most and least impactful actions since the beginning of the program until the end. And since we are saying what you will continue doing means also for 2025, you will continue doing those actions. So in that stop, start, and continue matrix, the continue actions are effective as well as something that will continue in your network. I can open the matrix if you can still see my screen. It's a very simple matrix. Safeguarding was the one that
you forgot. Oh,
you
wow.
forgot.
How could you? How dare you?
So basically, on the left, the dimension is basically your indicator or the theme of that indicator. Then we have start, continue, and stop. That's about the action or the strategy that your network has been implementing. And in the end, the comment, just to clarify if there is anything that you want to add for that specific indicator. This is not like a prescriptive format to answer those questions. You can use this also to just facilitate the session and capture all the insights and then put it in the narrative in a more consolidated way. We are also happy to look at the consolidated version as well as this version, but this is what we thought could help in capturing those inputs. That's about performance indicators.
Yeah. And then the final question is really about sustainability. So based on your reflection, what interventions will you implement next year to kind of ensure sustainability of the She Leads interventions, and specifically those relating to youth movements and girls and young women's groups? Questions?
So that one again, like you say, goes to sustainability and your exit strategy, in other words.
Yeah.
Just being mindful of the time. Okay, Hava?
Yes, Imani. So I just want to know, when you say start, continue, and stop, can you elaborate a bit on those points? Does it mean that if the network has started doing something on safeguarding, and when you say continue, like what are the progress or in terms of implementation of whatever strategies you've identified? I just want you to elaborate more on that so that it can be very clear to us, please.
Yeah. So it's basically to group the actions. So for example, just continuing on your example, the network has started doing something on safeguarding. And if it's working well, you would continue doing it. So you put it under that continue box. You put that action or that like a brief of that action there that the network has started doing this in blah 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 year, and this is the main crux of that action, and it has been most effective because of this, and that's why we would continue it. And if you put it under stop, that means, yeah, we tried doing this, but it was not as effective as we thought, or it has not produced the results that we expected it to. So just going back to the questions here on the screen, the most and least impactful actions, that's how we want to capture it. There could also be ideas that you never got to try, like you thought this could be super interesting to try out for meaningful youth participation, but that has not been done yet. You can put it in start. We are not going to be like, hey, you said you will start doing this. Where is it in 2025? But it's also to capture what is the potential. So that's why the start column exists, and the continue and the stop column speaks more about the existing actions and existing ways of how we address these issues and what has been most and least impactful. So it's not really to point fingers at, oh, this network has a lot of stops, so they didn't do well. It's more about grouping that information more systematically so that we also kind of have a little bit of preparation uh, to write the report and for the end term evaluation.
Okay. Thank you so much. That will mean to reflect on all of the reports, both annual and annual plan and annual narrative reports, to identify what are the key strategies that you have highlighted before that you are going to implement for the different cross-cutting issues. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's go over the learning part.
Good news.
Go ahead. Go give the good news.
It was difficult to convince Jos, but we will not be making learning questions for this year. You can thank Imani and I. Sorry.
But
yeah, but
so there won't be any new learning questions that need to be answered or addressed or thought about, but we are going to basically again reflect and streamline the learning actions and the learning questions from the previous year. And since we keep saying 2025 is the last year, we want to somehow in your plan see how will those learning products or the findings from your learning questions, how will we bring it all together? How will we disseminate the findings? How can that feed into the end line? For example, if you see the second bullet, it speaks more about 3 recommendations for the next phase. What would they be based on your learning questions or your experience so far? Or the third one, that's about what elements from your learning journey would you recommend the end term evaluation to focus on? So these are really questions where you reflect on your learning trajectory so far and the learning questions and the work that has happened on those questions, and kind of respond to those bullets. And what you see next is the 4th bullet and the 5th bullet. That's more about the actions, the learning actions, so to say. So there is a separate tab in your Annex A for that. That's more about bringing it all together. So whatever learning actions have happened so far in the 4 years, how do we bring that together? How do we kind of bring it to a closure, or disseminate it better or share it better? With whom do we want to share? How do we want to share it? So those kind of more concrete plans about bringing your learning journey at some conclusion of sorts. So that is the idea. So that's again a bit of a reflective exercise, and for the next year it's more about sharing those learnings, exchanging it. It could be also an exchange that you want to do with some other network or internally in your own network or with the whole consortium. Just throwing ideas there.
Yeah.
So that's what we expect. That's about learning. Do you want to add something?
You don't necessarily have to use the template for this, but you can, right?
Yeah. I mean, for the actions, it's good to use.
Yeah, for the actions it is, yeah. Okay, shall we go over?
Vafa.
Yes, Wafa?
Or
Or
Lieselot?
Lieselot?
Thanks, Linda and Imani. Yes, and a small question from my side, which responds to footnote number 5, because in there it is mentioned that it is recommended to do a kind of an in-country closing event, right? And it mentioned the She Leads Global Desk recommends scheduling the final closing event during November. And that brought me back to the question to you, is that I can imagine that for such a final closing event, there will be also cost involved for venue, for drinks, transport costs, etc., which in principle is not possible because for the cost, for the activity cost, it was said before that it was for events until, let's say, the 1st October. So how should we yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So this corresponds to the question that Sarah had. So that we were really talking about activities that also have targets, right? And that we say for the closing events, that is an obvious, what is it? Exception.
Okay.
If it's, for organizing a closing event with the whole network and everything, that is an exception.
Okay, yeah, okay. Clear, thanks.
Still, I think it might be advisable to go in general to early November. My fear.
The reason we advised. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, in general is that any unexpected situation that might lead to postponing, rescheduling or something, I think that whatever can happen on the earlier side of the year is usually better for the last year.
Yes, the reason we advise this also has to do with the final term evaluation, because if I understood correctly, we think November, well, with the program ending, there is always a possibility that there is staff turnover, that like some people will leave the program. And we think that, okay, in November, that is still the month where there will also be contact, hopefully, with the FTE consultant, also for the validation and talking about the results from the FTE, and that you could kind of merge those two together. So that is why we advise November for this. Do you want to add?
Yeah, no, that was the point. But I think Sarah has a question.
I don't know if this is the platform for me to ask, but is it possible for us to take from the joint budget to do a joint project closure event that is physical?
I think that depends on the country and how big your joint budget is. Obviously, if from your joint budget you can fund this, then it's perfect. If you can fund this and the other costs that your joint budget has to cover, then it's perfect. If it's not, then it is advisable to ask partners to also make money available for this.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and then that's the next section as well, joint budget. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so like all the other years, we ask you to kind of give an overview of your joint budget, also in Annex A, to facilitate us to kind of look at what you have planned for your joint budget and also to transfer the joint budgets. You can do this in the same template as you used to, which is also in Annex A. It's, I believe, the final sheet.
Yep.
Are there any other questions?
Do you have questions?
Yeah, we have questions. And also on who is going.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we don't have any questions, then we have questions. I'm not entirely sure. Like we have some dates, the final dates of these annual planning meetings communicated to us at the desk level, but it would be good if, as we have a lot of networks represented here, to know what the dates are for your meeting. And also if somebody is traveling from your consortium organization or from the global desk to this meeting, We ask this for two reasons, because there is one session that we planned or we recommend having in your meeting is one about the introduction and just an overall overview of the end term evaluation. And it would be good to know if nobody is traveling to your meeting, we can from our side at the global desk participate online and help facilitate this session. Since the end term evaluation is also under construction, so to say, we are still planning it. There's not going to be a lot to share, but we can just jump in on a call for half an hour or an hour and support those sessions. Also, in general, if you need support with target setting and basket indicators, you know who to reach. And then we can schedule a call. So just you can put it in the chat or tell us right now what the final dates for your networks meeting is, and if you have a program manager traveling to your meeting in person, or a PME person, or somebody from the steering committee or the global desk.
So let's start with the
We
list.
have Ethiopia.
Lucia is planning to join. Perfect.
Okay. Do we have any other dates? I know Jordan was the end of this month, Sarah, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's earlier. And I will be joining. Any other dates? Uganda, 5th to 9th August.
And is anyone joining Sophie from? Okay. Oh, Mena, 19 to 2020 to 19 to 22nd.
That's August, right? Yeah.
Yes, August, with Judith and Ellen joining.
Ooh.
Everyone is coming to the regional. So
Caroline? Which Caroline?
Vafa, are you also going to the Jordan country?
Yes, Linda, I'm also going to Jordan.
In Jordan, you have
good to know.
Yeah, I already told you, Sarah, at least Ellen, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Martina, Liberia is 13 to 15 August. Is anybody joining you, Martina?
Don't think so then. Sierra Leone, what do you say? Lisbeth and Juliet. Do you have space for me in your suitcase?
Juliet in Uganda.
Tell you.
Juliet is also joining Liberia.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have colleagues from Kenya or Lebanon?
Ghana. Lydia, when is your network having their session? And Vafa, do you know when the Ghana is having their session?
Sana was also in the meeting, right?
Sana? I
Okay.
don't see her.
Gone is not decided yet.
Okay, Lydia, when are your dates?
We are yet
So
to meet to
seven.
discuss the dates, but it will be in either the third week or fourth week in August. Yeah.
Okay, third or fourth week in August. Okay. Lucia, do you know when Kenya will take place? No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet confirmed. They mention either the week of 19 to 23 or 26 to 30. So the second half of August.
Is anybody traveling?
Is anyone traveling there?
No, I don't think so, but we have Dennis,
Will
the
Linux be
program
present?
manager there.
Okay. Okay, then Mali is like in August, the end of August. And Pan Africa, Vafa, can you confirm Pan Africa for us or not yet?
It's the week of 5 August till, I think, 8 August.
Just two.
Yeah.
And then we're only missing the gun.
Yes, we will stalk them. This Sunday's not here anymore, is she?
Okay. So for the networks where we don't have colleagues traveling from here, either Linda or I will join online for the session on the end-term evaluation.
Mali, I will join you.
Yeah, I've already written that. Just to give you a brief on how it's designed, what are the timelines, what to expect, what preparation is necessary, etc., etc. And for the program managers who are traveling from the Netherlands, we are thinking of a small session before you travel to brief you on this process so that you can facilitate this when you travel to the network.
So you'll hear from us on your email.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yes, coming, Nene.
Yes, for the French version, please ask Linda. She speaks French.
But I love Nene knows exactly the answer to this question.
Okay. All right, then if we don't have any more questions for now, if you have questions later, please do send us an email. And good luck with the meetings.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
It was
Nice
very
to meet you.
helpful.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao.
Hi,
Shukran.
everyone. Thanks
Thank you.
so much.
Bye. Au
Thank you. Bye.
revoir. Whatever language I'm doing now. Bye-bye.